Welcome to NMS. Today I'm going to talk to you about peptides, and what I want to do is actually do much more of a discussion on them, not just what the benefits are, but what the side effects can be, which ones are banned I'm going to go into, and I'm also going to go into what you need to do in terms of looking after yourself if you are using peptides. Now, in natural bodybuilding, which is where I compete, peptides are actually banned substances, so I can't use them, okay? Same as I can't use steroids, same as I can't use a lot of different cutting agents. But what I can tell you is that peptides, okay, can be beneficial to you, okay? So if you're not competing in bodybuilding and things like that, there may be a benefit to them. But you've also got to understand that if you're going to use them, you've got to know what they can and can't do for you and what the long-term effects could be, okay? Now, obviously, there's still a lot of them come under research chemicals. That means that they're still looking into the effects of what peptides can do. So you do have to tread cautiously with peptides. Okay, so let's get this presentation started. What are peptides? So basically peptides can be chains of amino acids joined together, 2 to 50 sort of chain lengths, okay? And that can play a wide variety of roles in the body. So a lot of them are naturally occurring, okay? Some are naturally occurring, some have been synthesized to do specific things, but generally they're naturally occurring. Now there's an overview of different classes of peptides and what they do, so I'm going to go through some of those. Okay, so the first ones we've got are signaling peptides. These act as messengers of the body to regulate various physiological functions. So you've got insulin, which regulates your blood sugar, glucagon, which also raises blood sugar by stimulating glycogen breakdown. Okay, you've got oxytocin, influences social bonding, childbirth and lactation. Very high in women, okay? Vasopressin regulates water balance and blood pressure. So these are just some signaling peptides. Growth or anabolic peptides, that's obviously the ones that a lot of people are interested in. Okay, so these are often used in fitness and bodybuilding for muscle growth and fat loss. So you've got your IGF-1s, which is insulin-like growth factors 1. These promote muscle growth and recovery. You've got your ones that stimulate your growth hormone. So you've got GHRH, right? CJC1295 is an example. This can stimulate growth hormone release. GHRP, okay? This also stimulates growth hormone release. You've got GHRP6 and you've got ipamorelin, okay? Then you've got your PEG-MGF, which supports muscle growth, repair and growth, okay? And then you've got follistatin 344, and this inhibits myostatin, promoting muscle growth, okay? So these are some of your growth ones. Anti-aging regenerative peptides. These are used in longevity and recovery protocols. So you've got apitolon, okay? Linked to telomere elongation, may extend lifespan. Now telomeres are on your DNA, so that can extend your DNAs and actually help with lifespan. It's been shown your telomeres get shorter over the lifetime. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into that because there's some pretty advanced sort of chemistry in that, but basically, yeah, apitolon. You got thymosin beta-4 or TB500. This can aid in wound healing and tissue regeneration. BPC157 promotes healing of muscles, tendons, and the gut. Okay, you've got GHKCU, which is skin regeneration, wound healing, and anti-aging effects. Very good for obviously as we get older to improve our skin. You've got metabolic fat loss peptides. These affect energy balance, metabolism, or appetite. Okay, you've got AOD9604, which is modified fragment of growth hormone that targets fat loss. Tesamorelin promotes fat loss, especially visceral fat, and melatonin, okay, 2, which increases melanin production, which helps with your tan and may suppress appetite. Now you've got immune modulating peptides used to enhance or balance immune responses. You've got thymosin alpha-1, okay, supports immune function, antiviral effects. You've got LL37, an antimicrobial peptide that also regulates inflammation. You've got cognitive neuroprotective peptides. These are used for nootropic or neurological processes or purposes. Solank, anxiolytic effects, so improves mood and cognition. CMAX enhances memory neuroprotection. Dihexa promotes synaptogenesis, studies for Alzheimer's. And you got cerebrolysin, which is a peptide mixture used for brain injury and neurodegeneration. You got sexually functioning peptides, pardon me. These affect libido or erectile dysfunction. You got PT141, which is bromelanitide, okay? Increases sexual arousal in men and women. So you've got cosmetic skin peptides used in skincare to improve appearance and health of the skin. Matrixyl or palmitoyl pentapeptide stimulates collagen production. You got argyroline, acetyl hexapeptide, reduces wrinkles by relaxing facial muscles. And you've got GHQCU, which is also mentioned, skin renewal, anti-wrinkle, and antioxidant. Now, what are important notes on peptides? Peptides can be natural or synthetic, as mentioned. Delivery methods may be injection, nasal spray, oral, or topical, depending on what the need is and what they need to, as to how you would actually take it. Peptides are often regulated substances in many countries. Some require prescriptions or are banned for athletic competition. We'll get into those later. So, performance peptides, IGF-1, insulin-like growth factors. What's their mechanism of action? So they produced mainly in the liver in response to growth hormone. They bind to IGF-1 receptor, which is a tyrosine kinase receptor on cells. They activate P13K2 or K, AKT, and MAPK pathways, promoting cell growth and proliferation, muscle hypertrophy, inhibition of apoptosis or cell death. That can be dangerous. We'll talk about that later on. Glucose uptake or insulin-like effect, okay? The key role is muscle building, tissue repair, anti-aging effects, and anabolic signaling. GHRH or growth hormone releasing hormones. Mechanism of action, they bind to the GHRH receptors on the anterior pituitary gland. They can stimulate pulsatile release of endogenous growth hormone. GH can then stimulate IGF-1 production in the liver, and then CHC1295 is a GHRH analog with a long half-life, okay, which means it lasts longer in the body. This is due to a drug affinity with a complex binding, so this allows more sustained GH release. So the longer it can bind to the active site, the better it is for binding. Key role, promotes natural GH secretion for muscle growth, fat loss, and recovery. So in other words, you get more growth hormone release, you get greater fat loss with that, greater muscle growth, and greater recovery from potential injuries or from training. GHRP or growth hormone releasing peptide binds to the ghrelin receptors in the pituitary and hypothalamus, stimulates GH release through a different pathway than the GHRH, so it works in a different way. It can be synergistic with the GHRH. In other words, a lot of people like to stack them together to get a greater growth hormone release than just taking one or the other, okay? Now, GHRP6 is also ghrelin, enhancing appetite and gastric motility. In other words, you get greater pass through the gastric, like through your stomach and through your intestines, and you also get enhanced appetite because it increases your ghrelin. Okay, key roles, GH stimulus, synergistic with GHRH, used for muscle gain and recovery, very similar to your GHRH. Ipamorelin, okay, selective GHRP. Mechanism of action, similar to the GHRPs, but more selective for GH release. Binds to the ghrelin receptor to stimulate GH secretion, minimal effect on cortisol and prolactin, unlike the other GHRPs. Now, prolactin is going to increase your estrogen and your cortisol, which is going to lower your testosterone. So this one is actually much more beneficial for growth and increasing your testosterone levels, okay? Now, key role is GH stimulation with fewer side effects, ideal for fat loss, muscle growth, and longevity, okay? So, the next one we've got is PEG-MGF. Now, that's pegylated mechanogrowth factor. Mechanism of action, MGF, is a spliced variant of IGF-1 produced in muscle in response to mechanical overload resistance training. Promotes satellite cell activation and muscle repair. Now, your satellite cells deliver protein to nuclei, which then actually gets converted to muscle mass, so you promote more satellite cell activation, okay? Now, the pegylation extends the half-life for more practical dosing. In other words, it's going to last longer, okay? Now, the key role is muscle regeneration and localized growth following exercise or injury. Follistatin, performance peptide, mechanism of action, binds to and inhibits myostatin. Now, myostatin is a protein that prevents too quick a muscle growth, which then helps to protect, obviously, your tendons, because if your muscles grow too quickly, your tendons don't, and that can cause injury. So it also neutralizes activins, which are involved in inflammation and cell proliferation regulation. So less activins, you get greater cell inflammation, greater cell proliferation. Disinhibition leads to increased muscle mass and potential strength gains. Okay, so I've made a PDF of all this, and I'm going to make this available to people who are interested. So obviously comment on this if you're interested, and I will send it to you. Okay? And I've also listed the different peptides that you can actually take and what they do. Okay, so there's a summary table in that. Okay.